I think that putting my identity and my worth into motherhood really kind of pigeonholed me in how I was viewing my world and my worth. And as soon as I got the world of motherhood and it didn't validate my identity, it didn't make me feel more loved or purposeful or worthy, I thought, I've made a giant mistake.
Welcome back to the Spiritual DNA Zoom sessions. Pastor Daron Earlewine here, and I'm so excited to have our guest, Amanda Mobley here. And Amanda, we've known each other for a while. I got to know you actually first through your husband, the magician, John Mobley. I used to know him back in the day as Johnny Magic, but he is still doing awesome magic. And I got to know him first. We've gotten to know you a little bit more through Spiritual DNA, and now with your work as the president of Dotted Line Divas, a phenomenal nonprofit here in the Indianapolis area. So welcome to these Spiritual DNA Zoom sessions, Amanda.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So you're multi-talented. You have many, many roles. You are a wife. You're a mom of two. Is that correct?
Yes.
And they're two under what? What are the ages there?
Two under four, a 4-year-old and a
Okay.
1-year-old, both boys, lots of
Okay.
energy.
So I have three boys. You know, we go from 9 to 15, almost 16. So we're out of that stage, but I know what you're going through. You are in full contact mode, full throttle at home as a mom, as a wife, and now with your role with Dotted Line Divas. And I'm excited to get into this conversation with you, Amanda, because I know a little bit more of it than obviously our viewers may, because I know where God's guided and directed you since you came through Spiritual DNA. But it's an inspiring story, and I'm excited for people to jump in. And so why don't we just start? I know that we talk a lot about at Blackbird and at Spiritual DNA that we know that all of us want our life to matter. We want to make a difference. And so that's because God has created us on purpose and for a purpose. And so that's in hardwired within our DNA that He's created us for significance and to accomplish things. So I guess take us back to when you first signed up for Spiritual DNA. Did you come to the live event and to take the online course? Were you seeking a greater sense of life meaning? Kind of where were you at when you interacted with the course first time?
Yeah. Okay. So the first time I took the course, I was actually a few weeks from delivering our second child. It was back in February 7th, I think. And I was fully ready to go into labor at the session. So
I'm so glad you didn't, by the way. That would have
I'm
been
so glad I didn't.
completely DNA experience. That would have been different.
Yeah. And yeah, I was kind of struggling at that point in my life because I had a 2.5-year-old son, and I was home from my job as an elementary school teacher. I was on maternity leave, and I thought, okay, here we go again, round two. The first round was kind of hard. I had set it up in my mind that motherhood was the ultimate goal and purpose for me. I loved watching my mom parent. I'm the oldest of four, and I had kind of a pretty idyllic childhood. And I just kind of romanticized that. And I thought motherhood is the cream of the crop. Like when I get to be a mom, all my hopes and dreams are going to be fulfilled. And when I became a mother, I didn't get that. And so I had been searching for something. It wasn't teaching, because teaching didn't fill me. It filled me while I was at school. But then when I was at home, I didn't feel needed or wanted in a way that was meaningful like I did with teaching. And so coming into Spiritual DNA, I thought, this is just going to be another thing to tell me something else to do, like kind of something else to put on my plate so that I can
Mhm.
be another thing, like add another label. And what I found was um, kind of a releasing of different labels and a freedom to be myself because I discovered who I was at that session.
I love that. And so, one of the things we know we want our life to matter, but we do say so often that fear is our enemy. to pursue the process of becoming who God's created us to be. So I just want to go back real quick and talk about what fear was doing, maybe in and through you during that, because that has to be significant too. And I'm sure there are millions of moms that would say a hearty amen to you, that like, I had this super high expectation, like this is when, like you said, this is the pinnacle. I'll become a mom and everything will be figured out. I'll have the peace and the purpose and everything, and I'll feel like I've arrived. And there had to be some real wrestling matches with fear, and I'm sure a ton more emotions as you were like, wait a second, I am here. I'm about to be here again with baby number two. And this hasn't fixed everything. This hasn't fulfilled everything. What were some of the thoughts and the battles that you were working through during that time, Amanda? Because I'm sure there's got to be so many ladies that are watching this going, oh my gosh, finally somebody's like saying what I felt.
Yeah, I think that putting my identity and my worth into motherhood really kind of pigeonholed me in how I was viewing my world and my worth. And as soon as I got the world of motherhood and it didn't validate my identity, it didn't make me feel more loved or purposeful or worthy, I thought, I've made a giant mistake and now I'm stuck in this for the rest of my life.
Mm.
And there's no way out of it. So I'm gonna run back to teaching and see if that fixes it. And when I ran back to teaching, it didn't fix it because I was again trying to find my identity in what I could do for others, and if I could be an engaging teacher, if I could create deep relationships with my students and have those cherished moments that everyone can point back to and say, like, I had this teacher and I'm different because of her. Um, when teaching was taken away and when that vision of motherhood didn't amount to what I thought it was going to be, the fear started to set in, and it was, you're going to be stuck at home forever. And your students are going to forget you. And your life and what you do is never going to be enough. It's just going to be a bunch of little things. And so I felt like I had to start searching for big things in my life.
Mm.
Like I was going to be an amazing stay-at-home mom who also taught my child. And I'm going to produce this brilliant, gifted, creative child, and that's going to be my contribution to the world. And that was also not happening, nor was it fulfilling me.
Well, it sounds like, and this is something, that I'm sure people have heard it said is, we talk about that fear is your enemy, but what I've noticed time and time again is that fear is also a liar. And so often within our understanding of stepping into who God's created us to be and stepping into our identity is one of the greatest ways that fear, and I'm going to put a name to fear, which is our enemy, right? Which is the devil. One of the basic ways and most powerful ways he attacks us is him bringing lies against our identity. Like you were saying, like, you're stuck here. You're about small things. Like these are, identity type. You're going to be forgotten. The kids aren't going to remember you. Like this is an attack on your identity to keep you stuck. And if you're watching this right now and you're like, oh my gosh, I've been there as well. That's why we really feel like there's such a power in beginning to understand who God's created you to be through your spiritual DNA, because then you can come back and instead of dealing with negative emotions and fear and these lies, you have something to come back to as far as a baseline and say, no, this is true about me because who God has created me to be. And so how did what you learned in spiritual DNA begin to give you a more of a bedrock to move out of those lies, Amanda?
Yeah, the first thing that I recognized through going through spiritual DNA was that I thought I had to be a certain way as a mother. I
Hmm.
thought I had to show up a certain way on play dates, and how I planned my day and what I accomplished throughout my day. And so I'm an Enneagram 2 with a 1 wing, and that striving for perfection and striving to have those deep relationships, when those weren't satisfied, um, again, I kind of went back to, okay, I'm not trying hard enough, which means I'm not good enough, which means my worth is very small. And one of the foundational things that you talked about in spiritual DNA was that triangle of God, us, and others, and how that God is for us, and that He's a good father, and that He wants to have a relationship with, not based on what we can do with Him, but just based on who we are, and as we are created rather, and that there's nothing that we could say or do to make Him love us and want us more.
Mm.
And even though I had heard that growing up in church, it didn't really take shape for me, because I was still living in that trap of mother. I call it a trap. Like, I called motherhood a trap for the longest time.
Mm.
And when I started to relate to God as my father, and that He was pleased with me no matter what, I started to release some of those performance ideas. Like, I had to be a certain way. And once I realized I don't have to be the person who reads their Bible every day and really just loves to read scripture and memorize it. I can be an enthusiast, and I can be a caregiver, and I can be a person who is all about experiences, and that doesn't make me less worthy in God's eyes.
Mm. Yeah, you're talking a lot about there. We talk about in spiritual DNA that through this covenant relationship, it's a concept called the covenant triangle that I learned from Mike Green, a great teacher. That the covenant triangle that God invites us into, this covenant relationship, is a relationship where covenant means becoming one, right? He wants to become one with us, and the way that breaks out is that it starts up top of the triangle with the Father, and the first thing that gets developed in us, if you go down to I guess it's, I don't know which way people are seeing this as I'm reversed in my computer screen, but you move towards identity first, and that's brought by a relationship with Jesus through grace, but it's identity first, and out of identity then it flows across the bottom of the triangle to obedience. And that obedience is that performance side of things. And then it goes back up to connection and intimacy with the Father. But so often the way that we live this, and exactly what you played out, is that we get connected to God and then we go the other direction and we go directly towards performance. Am I doing enough? Am I being enough? Right? Am I reading enough? Do I look spiritual enough? We declare to ourselves what our identity is. And man, that is a trap. And whether it's motherhood, whether it's being a high-powered executive, a business owner, a successful artist. I mean, go whatever the role is. But man, we get caught up in that, and that performance-based connection to God is exhausting. And when we get to that point to say, "Wow, I'm I'm loved, I'm redeemed, I'm actually was created," and that's what I think I love spiritual DNA so much, is to realize that all of these things were created in you as God was creating you, right? Before you did anything, before you became a mom, before you were born, like, this is how your brain is hardwired. This is how His Spirit has brought you to life. Like, none of this was based on, all right, well, Amanda's been doing a pretty bang up job, we're going to give her some ability to make a difference in the world, right? Like,
Right.
just because He loved you and He gave you life. Second Peter tells us that we have been given everything we need for life and for godliness through our connection with Jesus. It's already in you. And Amanda, you mentioned in there some of your DNA, and I want to jump into this so we can kind of give folks the context of this, is in your results. And you're talking about how you found that it wasn't about this performance that had to look like someone else, but the way you connect with God. You're talking about your spiritual pathways there, which you're an enthusiast caregiver. And I'm going to run down your spiritual DNA results real quick, Amanda, and then we'll just kind of jump through them if that's okay. But we'll start with your fivefold ministry function, or your sense of calling, okay, which is you're an evangelist shepherd. The two words that we interchange for that sometimes is, as an evangelist, we can interchange that word for a connector, and as a shepherd, a nurturer. And I love those words that we borrow from the work of Giant Leadership and their 5 Voices assessment, because sometimes people hear evangelist and they think method, right? They think Billy Graham or door-to-door evangelism or something. They go, it's not me, right? But to unpack that, no, an evangelist is a connector. There's someone who connects people to other people or resources to people. And it's an amazingly powerful gift. So you're an evangelist shepherd. You have enthusiast caregiver as your spiritual pathways, is the way you naturally connect with God. You personality wise, you're an ENFJ, which we're almost the same. I'm an ENFP, so we're one off. That just means you're super fun to be with, and you actually get stuff accomplished. I'm super fun to be with, and we struggle with accomplishment. Looking at your strengths: belief, woo, which stands for winning others over; developer, empathy, and restorative. What a powerful 5 themes there for your strengths. And as we talk about your passion, one of the things you put in here that you wrote down is that your identity and worth are not based on your relationships with other people or what you can do from them. And those are some of the takeaways that you've had. Let's kind of go through those. And I'd actually like to start. And I usually do when we're putting it together and kind of interpreting people's spiritual DNA. I like them to start from their voice in the kingdom, or their 5-fold function, which is that evangelist shepherd. That does come from Ephesians chapter 4. If you're wondering where that comes from in the Bible, where Paul talks about that God has given these 5 gifts to the church, these 5 roles or voices or vocations of apostle, prophet, evangelist, shepherd, or teacher. The other terms are pioneer, creative, connector, nurturer, guardian. So you are an evangelist connector. When you began to lean into that, Amanda, what did that start to unlock for you?
Well, it was completely a surprise when I
Okay.
received those results. I literally took a step back physically when I got that, and I thought, "Oh, that's a big job. That's a big important thing." And even though I feel like I want to do big important things in my life, that means if I am showing up that way, now I've got to live up to it. And I feel like my family and my kids can kind of be a ball and chain sometimes. And I don't want to run the risk of getting disappointed running after something and not getting to fulfill that. And that lie was totally broken, because it's not about how much or how big of a
Mm.
connection that I can provide to people. It was just me going, "Oh my gosh, this is real. I
Mm.
do feel that." And taking that step of receiving that result and going, what do I think about that? Do I resonate with that? How do I sit with that? And when I looked into what that really was about being a connector, and how I'm a deeply relational people, and how I care so much about other people's needs and desires being met, and not for my own benefit, but because I know this person needs this and I have a resource. Oh my gosh, that is going to come together, and they're going to be filled, and that person's going to be filled. And I don't need anything out of that. Just knowing that there's a need that is met, made the whole evangelist thing not so scary, and allowed me to get super excited about stepping into that more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't afraid of it anymore.
So was it a part of the fear, Amanda? Does it come from like feeling like the word evangelist, like, oh, that's like I got to do bigger, like big stuff for God? Is it more in the spiritual sense that it feels overwhelming?
Yeah, when I heard the word evangelist, I thought, "Oh, I can't stand on a street and tell other
Mm.
people about Jesus. No, no way. I can call people and I can do small group stuff." Um, but that was also a lie, because in my heart of hearts, like, I want people to have a relationship with Jesus because of how it's changed my life. And I think a fear that I had was people are going to look at you and think you're weird if you share your relationship with Jesus in a bold way. And that evangelist connector label lost its power as being a label, and became more of this, just like, it's going to sound a little weird, but it kind of became this aura, this space that I
Mm.
walked in. And it didn't feel like, okay, here's your checklist of things that you have to do. It was like stepping into this space of, this is how you relate to people. This is where you receive your joy, and this is where other people are served and receive joy. And if it comes with them getting to hear about Jesus, who really loves them and has their best intentions, why that's not a thing to be afraid of, because that's
Yeah.
going to be a life-giving thing instead of a weird thing.
Do you see it? Let's take it out of the Jesus-y stuff, because I think this helps people get their mind around it a little bit. Is as you look at your life, Amanda, do you see a trend where you naturally connect people with good things? And I mean,
Yes.
your favorite soda, your favorite cereal, your favorite TV show, your favorite band, another friend. Like, can you give us a couple instances of super not Jesus-y stuff, just like good news? And that's what I want people to get their, for people to get their mind around. An evangelist connector is someone who brings good news. And the word gospel, if we take it into the Jesus side of things, gospel literally means good news. But if you want to see how naturally God has created you as a connector evangelist, take it out of spiritual stuff and what's good news? Like I said, when you discover your new favorite restaurant, that's good news. And
Yeah.
you naturally connect people with that. Tell us, where are some of those themes at in your life as an evangelist connector and just good news stuff?
Yeah, I think when I do connect people, what's so funny is I used to be afraid of, oh, they're going to think that I like see something lacking in their life and that they need something.
Mm,
Um, and now I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, this person loves tamales. And the best tamale shop is on the south side of Indy. And if they get this, they're just going to be like, yes, my day is awesome now. And so I can tell people that. And if a friend is really I had a friend who was struggling with meal prepping, especially like in the season that we're in, being home, having no time. And I was like, look, here is my holy grail of Instapot recipes, and it's going to save you a bazillion hours of time
mm,
making food for your family. And that's also delicious and healthy.
yeah.
And just seeing like, she was so stressed and she's like, I don't know how I'm going to keep going like this. She was at a point of kind of hopelessness and being overwhelmed. And that tiny thing of, here's a resource for you. And by the way, here's my favorite one. You can thank me later. And
Yeah.
she did.
Well, see, and I love that. I don't think it's a little thing, Amanda, because one of the things that I think sometimes we shortchange this connection with Jesus in is it's like everything has to have an eternal thing, right? Like, well, you're not connected people to Jesus to know they died on the cross from and they don't go to hell. And like the eternal thing, it doesn't matter. What I love about my connection with Jesus is, yes, the bonus is I'm not afraid of death. When I die, it's an upgrade. But what I'm super stoked about is what does it mean to actually be living life with God right now? And realizing that that allows me to show up as an ambassador, as the Bible says, or a representation, right, of Him to say, you know what, God, like, you know what He really likes? He really likes people to understand what they really like. And if you really like tamales, then like it's an an element of me being Jesus to connect you with the thing that brings you joy, and to know that it's not like you have to do some big huge eternal thing. It's like, how do you show up as yourself, as God has naturally created you, and bring goodness and faith and hope and love to people's life, whether it's something about Jesus in eternity, or it's like, here's the best tamale shop in town.
Right.
Uh, and I think, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, I mean, is I feel like when we know that we're not doing this just accidentally, but we're doing this on purpose because it's how God's created us, I feel like it brings more joy to the mundane than, you know, because I'm not an accident just sort of doing stuff, but I'm actually walking in my purpose. What's that look like for you?
Yeah, when I started to believe that God had me um, created the way that I am, and that the way that I am crazy enthusiastic about things, and I get overly excited, and I can be a little pushy about some things,
Mhm.
that my enthusiasm is often an inspiration for someone, and not like a life-changing inspiration thing, but it's an act of love and kindness to show that they are worthy, and that in this way that I know them and show that I know them, I'm showing that I love them. And I think that is the biggest thing that people are looking for. They're looking for, what's my purpose, and am I loved? Like, at the core of every person, they really just want to be loved. And if I can show that, hey, this way that you're made and these things that you care about, I care about too, or I can support you in that. Um, I feel like that's just a tangible expression of love.
Yeah. One thing I see in your DNA, Amanda, is do you remember how close your evangelist and shepherd were together?
They are 1 point apart.
Okay. I figured they were. And here's why. As I look at your DNA results, what's really intriguing is if you look at that you're an evangelist shepherd and they're one apart. So you are a natural, your voice in the world, your place in God's kingdom, secular and sacred, and is you show up to connect and nurture relationships. I mean, that is who you are. And you look at it, you're an enthusiast caregiver. So how do you connect most with God before you can even pour out to others? You're enthusiastic. You probably love worship and worship experiences and high emotion type great things, right? You get excited, you get passionate about things, and you do, and then that motivates you to care for others, which drives greater connection to God and greater connection to others. I also look at it, if you look at your strengths, what I love about this is that you have that belief is your number one, which gives you an ability to internalize the things that you actually do love and get enthusiastic about, not just as concept, but you actually believe them. But then right away you move into woo, which means winning others over, which as a connector, one of the greatest strengths you're going to need is be able to, within minutes, win someone over to who you are and what you're about so that you can connect them with something that's going to bring life to them. But then if you look at your next three, and this is shepherd all the way, but developer, empathy, restorative. And I don't want you to miss that, Amanda, because you could be an evangelist teacher. In that case, I guarantee you your pathways and your strengths would be much more about ideas and concepts than they are about relationship. You would probably have a spiritual pathway of contemplative or intellection. You know what I mean? Maybe even traditionalist. You would probably have strengths like learner or of input, maybe even communication, where your passion would be, I bring good news of ideas for people to understand things. For you, you bring good into people's lives to bring, and I love this, those three, to develop, to be empathetic, and to restore people relationally. And that's such an amazing shepherd's heart behind the role of being an evangelist. So it's such a nurturing heart as you connect. And so the relational part of that is so dynamic. What does it feel like to you just to hear that truth about you, man, as we're just in this moment right now?
It's funny you said that, because as you said it, my heart just got like all bubbly and warm. And I was like, man, I do. I love
Mm,
people, and people can be awful sometimes,
mm,
right? We have difficult people in
yeah.
our lives. But at the core of who I am and how I show up, I am most alive when I am with people, talking to people, listening to them about what's going on in their lives, feeling like either the pain or the joy that they are in. And when I am like with people, I am with people.
Mm. Yeah. And that's right, right in there with your personality as an ENFJ, right? And you're an extroverted, intuitive feeler, which is right on. Man, what about this? What difference would it make for you? And I know you're doing this because I want to talk next about the even career life decisions you've made because of the spiritual DNA results. But what would it do for you to wake up every single day and remind yourself of the truth that we just unpacked about you? How do you show up on a Monday different if that's where you start your day?
Oh gosh. Well, I've been experiencing that lately since being at home with the kids and not being able to go out anywhere. And that has taken a lot of intentional choosing.
Mm,
And honestly, I've been going back to the spiritual DNA stuff a lot during this season, because I'm not with other people, and
mm,
I'm in charge of little people, little minds. And it is, they need a lot, but they don't reciprocate in a way
Sure.
that I'm used to with
Yeah.
adults. And so when I have been stuck in a moment, thankfully, I feel like spiritual DNA has kind of given me a filter to see the world that I'm in and be able to recognize, okay, this is why I'm getting upset about this, because I feel this way, or this is why I feel disappointed in this, because I view the world this way, and because I think this way and my world is not matching up like this, what decision can I make in this space before reacting and showing up in a way that I really would not like to show up.
So it sounds like you're
Uh,
saying it's almost like DNA is giving you almost like a secret decoder ring or like a lens to even view angst or view frustration in how you even respond.
yes, completely. It's, being able to have like super powered glasses in which
Hmm.
I now see the world. And because I can see that and decode it in that way, I'm finding myself less likely to get tripped up in my old habits or
Yeah.
in my places of brokenness, because I'm pulling from these things that now help me step into my identity and walk in my strengths rather than getting stuck in a spiral of downhill thoughts.
That's amazing. Let's talk about career changes because we said when we started that you are the president of Dotted Line Divas, which is a phenomenal nonprofit here in Indianapolis. And yeah, unpack that because when we started, you said you came through DNA. I'm moments away from being a mom of two. I'm not leading a nonprofit. Uh, how do you go from I don't know if I'm a teacher, stay at home mom, to like no, I'm going to step up and I'm actually going to become the president of a nonprofit. What gave you the courage and what was the process of stepping into that role, Amanda?
Sure. So I was in a small group with the founder, Christina Huffines, and she was talking about how she wanted to take the nonprofit from where it was and move it into the next phase of its existence. And my developer was like, oh, I have so many ideas about this. Don't give her all the ideas. Listen to her heart first. And as she was talking about how she didn't feel like she had the supportive team behind her to accomplish this next phase, my heart was just like, oh, I want to help you. How can I volunteer? How can I get the word out about what you need? And she said, well, actually, I need a new president. And I went, okay, it's going to take a step back. I'm not presidential material. I'm a super great helper. Um, but there was this weird stirring in me. And I got to give credit to Brandon Faust, who has a really great way of walking people through how to make decisions um, with what he's doing. And so I was talking to him about that, and he's like, well, is this a place in your life where you could see yourself serving? And I thought, well, yeah, I could see myself serving that. And he's like, well, what's stopping you from taking on a leadership role? And that question propelled me back to my spiritual DNA stuff. And I'm like, I love bringing people together. I love connecting a need. Okay. Why am I afraid here? And it was that whole identity and worth thing, that if I step into this leadership thing, which I don't feel like I'm equipped for, then what's my worth going to say about me? And so prayed about it, and I said, you know what? I would love to help. Here's how and I brought a whole presentation to her. Like, here's how my strengths are going to help propel your nonprofit. And
Yeah,
she
yeah.
laughed and she's like, I knew that you were going to be the person from the moment I started talking to you about this, because I could tell your heart for me and for other people was what we needed.
Yeah. Tell us what because I this is going to be the icing on the cake is explain to our viewers what it is that Dotted Line Divas does so you can see exactly how an evangelist shepherd with developer empathy and restorative strength should be like, yes, that is my jam. So explain what Dotted Line Divas is all about.
Right. Okay. So Dotted Line Divas. Christina Huffines is a magician with couponing. She does extreme couponing, and she gets personal care supplies at a really discounted cost. And then we have a pantry that is open the third Saturday of every month at Mercy Road Northwest, and people can come and they can shop for their own personal care items. And so it is meeting a need of people that we don't typically think of, but when your personal care is met, you are able to feel confident about yourself. You're able to show up in the world and be fully present because you're not worried about a basic need that needs to be met. And you have dignity restored because you are the person who is going through and shopping and making your own choices. And it's not receiving a handout. And it is about relationships because when people come to the pantry, we want to get to know their story, who they are, what they're about, and not just to receive items. And so through that circle of meeting people, meeting a basic need, but then getting to know them, they have then come back and volunteered.
Mm.
They've helped us move from what we had a small space before now to this beautiful big space in a new building. And it is about relationships there. And so, yes, a basic need is getting met and people are being affirmed in their worth as a person, but they're also receiving love and validation that like it's not a handout. We really
Mm.
do care about people when they come there and not just giving them stuff.
Sounds like the absolutely hand in glove, perfect opportunity to become to become who you were born to be and stepping into that role, Amanda. I love it. It's so inspiring to see how God has had you on this journey. He truly, we say it all the time, that God has created you on purpose and for a purpose. You know, the word of God tells us in Ephesians chapter 2 that we are the workmanship of Christ, right? Created in him to do good works, which he's prepared in advance for us to do. And what I love is that, you know, as you came through spiritual DNA and doing, you know, wrestling down, you know, your identity and where do you find your worth? And as you begin to unpack this, is that God already had this opportunity prepared in advance, right? For you just to step into. I love what you're doing. I love the leadership you brought to Online Divas. I love what you're sharing with us on this Zoom session. And I guess one of our last questions I'd just like to ask, Amanda, and this has popped into my head as you were talking, is it's kind of bringing it full circle. How has stepping into becoming who you're born to be, finding this meaningful role to bring care, to bring good news and good things, to restore in an empathetic way, to develop people through Dotted Line Divas? How has this journey? How has it brought more peace or maybe purpose to your role as a mom? Now that you have all these things going, how has that complemented that in that process?
It's funny that in learning more of what I'm not
Hmm.
um, allows me to step into what I am. And that removes the pressure of being a mom that I thought I needed to be and just being the mom that my kids need me to be. And so they don't need me to be a stay at home mom who's also their teacher. They need me to play with them, to bring my enthusiastic, fun personality
Mm.
to wrestle with them. Like boys are so different. I am a very girly girl who I really miss painting nails and having tea parties with little kids. When I was babysitting, I babysat a lot of girls, and I was like, yes, this is going to be what motherhood is like. And God gave me two really strong-willed, rambunctious boys who love dirt and bugs and I'm just like, okay, how do I show up and love my kids and like not make everything a teachable moment? How do I do that? And I feel like there is so much more grace in my
Mm.
parenting. There's so much more now having seen the Father's heart for me as his kid, how I can have more of the Heavenly Father's heart for my kids. And boy, do I mess up so much. But I don't put that pressure of, "Man, you blew it as a mom today." It's you tried your best as a mom today, And here's how you admit that you were wrong. I never would have told my 4-year-old, hey, mommy got mad and I'm sorry for hurting your feelings. I would have totally made it about how he was wrong, how he shouldn't have done this thing, and how he deserved his punishment. Totally honest. And now I feel like I don't have to measure up to anything because my worth has already been um, validated and secured. And
Love it.
if that's the only thing I learned in life, I feel like I'm going to have a great life.
Man, Amanda, I love that so much. Not feeling the pressure that you have to be the mom that others think you should be, or that you thought you should be. I hate that word "should." Right? It's such a shame word. To step into the peace and say, "No, I'm going to be the mom that God's created me to be." And if He's given me these kids as a gift, if He's created me the way that He's created me, I have exactly what I need to raise my boys in the way that they need to be raised. And I hear you. I have 3 of them in my house. Yeah, my wife's the only female in the whole house, and she definitely has the need for more feminine contact because there's a lot of testosterone going on through our house. So I know you feel the same thing, and I love the journey you're on. I love what God's unpacking through and in your life, Amanda. And so thanks so much for being on here, taking us on this journey. I know there's going to be moms and dads and college students and just all over the gamut that are going to identify with so much of what you shared today. And hey, you know what? If you see yourself in Amanda's DNA, if it's similar, I know that you're going to learn some cues and say, "Man, that's exactly like me." Or if we went through this and Amanda and her DNA couldn't be more polar opposite than you, there's a ton you can learn, because it's not just about us understanding who we are, but everything we do in following Jesus, right? I love what Alex McManus said when he said that the gospel always comes to us on its way to someone else. And so this process of what we learn about us, it's not just so we can receive, but it's so that we can bring it to other people and know how to love other people in the way they need to be loved. And so it's always an insightful process as well. And Amanda, I love it. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you, Amanda. If you want more content like this, just head over to DaronEarlewine.com. You can check that out. If you're watching this Zoom and you say, "What's this spiritual DNA thing they're talking about?" Spiritual DNA is an online course that I've created that helps you move from feeling like your life is insignificant to knowing your life's purpose and your life's worth. And here's what I know about you is when you discover your worth, you will start changing your world just like Amanda did. If you want to find out about spiritual DNA, head over to spiritualdna.me. It's the website. Once again, it's spiritualdna.me. You can purchase the course. It's an online course, all online teaching from me and the assessments. And then you're able to also join into our private Facebook group where you can get help and ask questions and tie into that. And we do also offer some coaching options that you can get information on the Spiritual DNA website, spiritualdna.me, or by just messaging me at DaronEarlewine.com. But Amanda, thanks so much. It's been a joy. And until we talk again, I just really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All righty. Bye-bye.